that have been with us since the beginning, we thank you. For those of you that are joining today, we do appreciate it. We hope you actually have the opportunity to go back and watch the first 3 sessions of it, and also join us for the additional 2 sessions that are going to occur later this week. This day, we're going to talk about improving marketing measurement across channels. It's a holistic performance evaluation. But before we start that, let me just give you a little bit about DataPoem. DataPoem is a comprehensive connected intelligence and growth planning measurement and optimization service used by Fortune 500 companies. We're designed to empower data-driven decision-making and agile marketing strategies by revolutionizing the use of causal AI and neural networks. In today's sessions, we'll delve into the transformative potential of connected intelligence. We'll discover how this innovative approach breaks down traditional marketing silos, enabling a holistic understanding of cross-channel effects to promote agile campaign optimization. In this session, we'll explore the limitations of traditional market mix modeling, the power of connected intelligence, agile campaign optimization, and we'll also discuss some real-world examples as we go through. Your host today will be Bharath Gadam. Bharath is the co-founder of DataPoem. Joining us, and we're thrilled to have him, is Rudy Gan. Rudy is a seasoned professional in marketing analytics in the measurement space. Throughout his career, he's held senior leadership roles at prominent companies, including Prohask Consulting, Publicis Media, Zenith, TransUnion, and eBay, working with category-leading brands in telecommunication, automotive, financial service, retail, hospitality, technology, and media. I think that needs to go a little longer, Rudy. As a thought leader, Rudy specializes in advanced analytic domains such as machine language learning, artificial intelligence, attribution modeling, marketing mix, connected TV advertising, and the ever-changing and emerging cookieless advertising technologies. He's also worked with some of the biggest brands. He's worked with Verizon, Toyota, Wells Fargo, Microsoft, Disney, and British Airways. We're thrilled to have him joining us today. But before we get started, just 2 things. One is for all of the attendees, you will be muted during this part of the session. But please feel free to actually post your questions in the Q&A section on the top of your screen. I'll hand this over to Bharath. Bharath, it's yours.
Hey, thanks, Tom. Thank you so much. Thanks, Rudy, for joining us.
My pleasure.
It's a great pleasure to have you here. Before we actually start into the conversation, this is one of my favorite topics of conversation, and what kind of actually led us to start DataPoem. So you know that I worked for almost 2 decades in agencies, and I have to tell you a small anecdote about my first day of job, right? So there was this head of strategy who came in and presented us. Hey, we are actually now doing, so there's a case study he was presenting about a auto brand, and he was talking about how the media planning is built on kind of achieving the conversions, right? And that's my first day. And I was thinking, just from the college, read the media planning, books about efficiency, effectiveness. I said, oh my God, this is great. This is awesome, right? And then post the session, I was talking to my, VP and the CEO at that time, and I was asking them, hey, this is great. I mean, why is it such a big thing? I thought everything should be like this, right? Why is it being celebrated that you are now making plan basis outcomes, right? And then my boss at that time told that, hey, he's too cocky, and let him show the real world. And then I got into making tons and tons of media plans on reach frequency and impressions and etc. But that's the my browse for the last 2 decades of how all of us kind of optimize, your favorite topic, Rudy, which we will get into a minute, which is you optimize metrics and you optimize them in silos, right?
Yeah.
You're optimizing GRPs, you're optimizing video views, you're optimizing impressions, and not optimizing for what is it actually being done for, right? So that's one of the reasons why I was, very frustrated about how, all campaign planning for almost 30, 40 years, been done on, media metrics or, siloed metrics and not outcomes. And the other frustration that we had was being a campaign planner, you had these clients doing, some kind of ROI studies, MMM studies, telling us that, hey, this is the campaign performance at a media level or channel level, right? Whereas we as campaign planners, we were, actually making decisions on platforms and audiences that we are actually working on, and we didn't never had an answer about those. And last but not the least, we were making campaigns or either a 2-month campaign, 4-week campaign, 12-week campaign, and we used to get the results of not how the campaign performed after 15 months. So it almost become like, okay, so are they doing post-mortem of what I did, or are they trying to help me with what we can do? And those are the, real practitioners' frustrations of, why we thought, data firm should start, right? So I want to, I know that you've done a, created a report on this, and you have a point of view on how, you summarize it beautifully. Let me share the, the slide that is one of your favorite thing, so that you can explain to the audience in terms of how, much more coherently and much more vividly. All yours, Rudy.
No, and then thank you for having me. We met while I was working on an RFI in this space, and we've had just a great conversation going since the first time we met. And I think, I have a similar background to you in that I come from agency life and the analytics space, and trying to drive data-driven decision making being that was the big feature of digital in particular. So I've always been super interested in how can you use data in this space to make better decisions. And what we're looking at here is just a quick and dirty little shortcut model we used to use when I was doing more measurement consulting, of trying to help people understand, well, what data do you need to make decisions in this space? And I don't want to oversimplify, but I think for the most part, you could make the case that the decisions that you have to make in advertising are either planning decisions or optimization decisions. Yep. And the distinction between those two, those are the decisions you have to make about where to allocate your money in the media ecosystem. So you may have a budget of X, how much of X goes to TV versus radio versus print versus digital, et cetera, et cetera. The kinds of information that you need to make planning decisions, that's a different kind of data than you need to make optimization decisions. Optimization decisions are when the money is already in market, right? You've already made a commitment of, we're going to spend this much in this channel, and the money starts running, the ad starts running, and then you have to make decisions about optimizing performance. So I think most people are going to they're going to be using data to make one of those two decisions. What channels should we allocate the unallocated money to? And then how do we get the most performance out of by optimizing with the money that's already in market? Generally speaking, you're either going to plan one channel at a time, more than one channel at a time, or all the channels at the time. And that's sort of that's the y-axis here a little bit. Which kinds of data you need is going to be dependent on what kind of decision you're making, planning versus optimization. But always, are you trying to plan just one thing, more than one thing, or everything? And I'll just wind down by saying, like, MMM in this construct would be sort of up and to the left, meaning that it's generally designed to support planning decisions, and it's as close to holistic as we generally get. It's an attempt to account for all dollars at the same time. All the channels in planning, we would put top left, whereas optimization, MTA, things like that, we would put bottom right. Those are also designed to be more than one channel at a time, but a lot of the MTA was designed to sort of help in-market decisions. How do we get the money that's already out there to work harder? And I think, and you guys know as much as anybody on this, I generally think you don't want to use the same data sets to do both. So we would say you probably need an MMM and you probably need an MTA, or at least that's what we would have said historically. I'm not sure I would say that anymore, but that's historically the way we've looked at it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And can you also tell us, how people miss or interpret it wrongly from metrics to outcomes, and how
Right.
everything is siloed, and
Yeah.
like the chart shows. There's so many metrics.
Yeah, and I feel like our entire industry, if you're a CMO right now, you are probably on collision course with a CFO because of the exact thing you're asking about here, which is sort of media metrics versus outcomes, right? Most CFO organizations are not going to sit around for a long discussion of the nuances of individual media metrics, right? Like, how you classify site visitation is much more relevant to the marketing metrics, for example, than necessarily the things that the CFO are going to look at. CFO is very outcome driven, and media metrics are almost all predictive and they're almost all proxies. And so, explaining the upper funnel to a CFO versus explaining the bottom of the funnel to the CFO is a very, very different, very, very different ball game. I don't want to oversimplify here, but if you work on purely digital metrics, it's very likely that you have lots of charts that go up and to the right in green, and all your metrics look great, right? Everybody likes to submit reports to the client back, hey, everything's looking good, it's going up in green, our marketing metrics are great, site traffic, whatever that is, right? You can have your marketing metrics all looking good while the business is going, into the crapper, right? Like, there's loads and loads of instances where the people who are managing the marketing campaigns, the marketing metrics, the marketing KPIs are submitting data that tells a story very different than what the overall business might tell. And I think that is a humongous liability for us. If you can't clearly show how your media metrics relate to business outcomes in a way that would allow you to defend your budget to a CFO, you're probably doing it wrong. And you're probably in big trouble. That's my read.
And why do you think the campaign managers or marketing teams who has this intuitive understanding that we need to do it on outcomes and not marketing metrics, what stops them from doing it? What stops them from kind of creating this solution that all of us would want but not able to do it?
Right. Well, I mean, the cynical answer is it's way easier to build a system that gets attribution credit than it is to build a system that generates business outcomes, right? Like, just being honest here, it's easier to make a data case that an ad deserves credit for an ad than to prove why. So I would start I would start generally with that. And again, I don't want to be overly reductionist about it, but we have to be honest about what the data sources are, particularly in digital, that get used to tell these stories. It's going to be reporting from an ad agency. It's probably going to be based on what an ad server says happens, right? These are the inputs that we are used to using. But when you take that data out into the real world, and you hand it over to data scientists who do not have who don't come from a marketing org, right? If you just hand this data to people who have the full data science background, it's just data that they use, and ask them to use ad server data in that sort of bigger financial thing, most of them are going to throw that stuff out. Most of those. I mean, if you have not yet had your media data subjected to a hostile audit by a group of data scientists who have no sympathy for marketing, they don't care, right? They just want to know, how much money did you spend and what did we get for it, right? Bringing only marketing metrics into that conversation, I think, puts you at a huge disadvantage. You need to be able to describe the impact the impact that marketing impressions have in the language of the CFO. And I just don't believe that most media metrics do that. And sort of a corollary of that, I'll just pick on digital here because the digital data I think is the most in need of fixing. Your average your average conversion on a website is probably being claimed for credit by more than one organization at a client, right? Like the website team's going to claim the orders that came on the website. The people who run digital advertising are. The people who do brand will want some of that. The field sales teams are going to want some of it. Most orders that come in on a website are counted 4, 5, 6 times, right? The CFO has to sit there and deduplicate. They have to run what I'll call an endemic attribution model. They have to attribute credit within, right? Marketing metrics don't tend to win those debates. If all you're bringing is your ad server data, you're going to get your ass skinned up, right? You're going to get rinsed. When these deduplication events happen and they're trying to determine who really deserves credit for this order, the attribution we use on the media side is usually not an ingredient there, right? We kid ourselves about how great our attribution data is. Then we hand it into the financial org. They aren't singing from our hymnal. They aren't using our script. They have their own math, and that math is stuff that most marketing people don't even know what it is. They've never even seen a deduplication on the client side. So that was a long, meandering answer, but I'm trying to get at it, right? Which is business outcomes and media metrics. There's a natural disconnect there. No one should convince themselves that even media reporting about business outcomes is sufficient. A CFO wouldn't use your data for outcomes. They'd use a much more robust data set.
Correct. So coming back to the topic that we're talking at, campaign optimization or campaign measurement, I see here when you have a holistic measurement thing that you require, what you require is a unified predictive multi-channel thing. Can you just explain why this is important, which is a predictive multi-channel thing rather than a individual search optimization or a social optimization?
Yeah. And again, I came up in digital and I was a digital chauvinist. I believe digital was just going to stomp every other channel as soon as things sort of got properly mature. And in some respects, that did happen. But, the things like traditional MMM, which are on the far left here, remain incredibly important because it's one of the very few specialized ad measurement vehicles that almost everyone in the executive organization at a company will understand, right? If you have to ride up an elevator with your CEO and they find out you're an analytics nerd, right? What do you really have to talk about there? Your CEO is definitely going to understand MMM, right? So MMM's importance is not just from the nerdy point of view that we talk about it in, what decisions does it support and so on and so forth. It's also very important because it's got decades of use, right? It's an understood and known quantity within most organizations, right? So from just a social engineering point of view, these holistic vehicles, things that are either MMM or could be explained in the same way you explain MMM, are super important because that's the way most people outside of the marketing organization are going to understand what it is that you do, right? Now, this thing on the far left here, this predictive multi-channel, when I wrote this, we didn't really have a name for vendors like yourself, right? You don't just do a pure MMM play. You don't just do a pure MTA play, right? What you're really doing, and again, I'm oversimplifying and I'm putting it in my language, but this predictive multi-channel, I almost think could be best understood as just-in-time planning, delaying the allocation of dollars to a channel as long as you can so that you can accumulate high recency information, whether that's simulated or real. I'm agnostic, right? Can you make your planning decisions, instead of making them a year in advance or a quarter in advance, could you make them a week in advance? Could you make them a day in advance? Could you make your allocations more fluid, right? Could you take advantage of high recency information, and could you take advantage of marginal ROI opportunities or alpha or whatever language you want to use to describe it, right? What has changed from the time you made your original plan until the time you have to demonstrate business outcomes, right? Between demonstrating business outcomes and planning, lots of things can change. If you do not have a measurement plan or a measurement infrastructure in place that allows you to change your assumptions as your information changes, you're already in trouble, right? So that's why this far left side of the graph is so important to us, right? Is across multiple channels, there's going to be lots of fluidity already. You asked a simple question. I'll try to give a more simple answer.
Yeah.
And Google is my role model here. Google is spectacular at frictionless channel level fluidity, meaning Google can come to you and say, hey, I know we planned X amount to be spent in search this week, but we actually see an opportunity to take money out of search and put it into whatever, DV360, YouTube, whatever they recommend, right?
Yeah.
They will proactively come to you with recommendations saying, we actually think your money would go further if we get away from our original plan and move it into some channels where an incremental opportunity popped up, right? That is what everybody should be doing, right? What Google can do within their stack, they can be completely frictionless and fluid, moving money between the different channels in what they do. Marketers now need to be able to be just as fluid across their channels, but not single property like Google. What Google does within its stack, marketers have to be able to do across everything. And MMM is too slow, and MTA's data isn't good enough. It was going to take new tech, new math, new data engineering, and that's why I'm interested in folks like yourselves, because I think you guys are the first. You're in that class of people who are making a first real down payment on getting that right.
Thank you. So I think which actually gives us to the next section. Can you just tell us why you felt strongly before even you saw the solution of AI or ML can do this, why you felt that if you have to do this multi-channel campaign optimization in agile manner at a very granular level, why do you felt that, the new thing that we all call it, the magic word, why do you felt that that's very important to get it all done?
Right. So you were talking about when you came on board and you started doing planning, and I think I don't want to completely divorce from the past here, even though I think we are moving into some fundamentally different things. Most media plans put together by an agency or a marketing team, those are predictions. A media plan is where an agency will go to a client and say, if you give us $1 million, here's what you can expect back for that $1 million if you do the things that we say you should do, right? Media plans are predictions of performance. And I would say in the digital realm, in programmatic in specific, bids are predictions. When you place a bid programmatically, that is your estimate of the value of that impression to you. And if you win it, you're happy because you're paying what it's worth, right? And if you don't, well, that's okay too, because you don't want to pay more than it is worth. We have a history in marketing of using, the funnel is predictive, planning is predictive, bidding is predictive, right? But the growth in AI and the advances in data engineering and the advances in the way machine learning can be brought to bear here has caused, I think, a fundamental change in the way marketers should be seeing the process of planning and optimization. And specific to your question, I really bristle when I hear people use the phrase KPI and the word metric as if they're interchangeable things, because they're really not. In my opinion, there are really only 3 key performance indicators in marketing. There's some side cases, but 99% of the time, the key performance indicators that a marketer has are effectiveness, efficiency, and scale. Effectiveness is your rate of productivity, click rate, conversion rate, yield, right? If I give you 1,000, if I get 1,000 impressions, what is the rate of productivity per 1,000 impressions would be an example. Efficiency is just the cost of productivity. So while efficiency is your KPI, your metrics under efficiency are things like cost per click, cost per order, cost per point, etc. Efficiency is where you account for the cost of things, and then scale is just the volume. The rate of productivity, the cost of the productivity, and the scale of the productivity, those are the 3 things that you really have to manage as a portfolio, I think, to get this right. And metrics themselves now, something like click rate, people have to understand this is not just some abstract modeling input anymore. The metrics you choose, those are your seeds. Those are your observations. Those are your instructions to the algorithm to make a prediction. The metric is the thing you want the algorithm to predict for you. Where will clicks come from? Where will orders come from? Where will reach come from? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, in the old days of doing, even in the old days of digital, right? Cost per click advertising is just a form of advertising where you care about the efficiency and the scale, but you don't really care about the effectiveness. It doesn't matter whether the click rate is 1% or 5%, as long as you spend in full and get all the clicks that you were intending to buy, right? That's the sort of janky ridiculousness that we're inheriting. Like, that's a human-driven process. It's an oversimplification of the ROI of marketing. The AI-driven future is not going to be like that, right? In the AI-driven future, the algorithms are going to be able to be effective, efficient, and scalable at the same time, right? Humans are great at doing 2 of the 3, but very few people know how to do all 3, especially with a big budget. The world that we're moving into doesn't look like the past anymore. It's going to be easy to be fluid, effective, efficient, and scalable across all of your channels, and I would also suggest across all of your metrics. Did I come even close to answering your question, or was that just a rant?
No, absolutely. No, it's absolutely mind-blowing. Instead of, giving jargons of digital and media, where we're all great at giving, to just tell that there are 3 things, which is fundamentally, how can a system or an intelligent system create an effective or effectiveness-based or outcome-based plan with efficiency at scale is what any advertiser would want.
Yeah.
And that is a system, every marketing planning team, every media planning team should be using it to get it. And you're adding a new dimension to it, which is not covered in these 3 things, which is the agility of it, right? Which is the important thing. It's not just enough to do all 3 at a point of time, but it's actually important to do it with agility and do it in a very, very granular manner, right? So that's the beauty of what, causal AI can bring in, and, the reward neural networks can actually bring in, right?
Yeah.
So I'll just tell you, if you look at, to just give you a sense of what Rudy is talking about. Imagine this is the campaign structure for a lot of clients, right? When he talks about scale, it starts with a brand kind of doing multiple kinds of campaign across paid, owned, earned media, across different media types, which is events, digital, TV, print, outdoor, and then within that channels, which is social, video, display. They're all tactics. And then within that platforms, which is Google or a Meta or a YouTube, Trade Desk, CBS, and then within that you actually do audiences, right? The campaign planners are optimization, optimizers at a campaign level are actually worried about how can I improve Meta's W18 to 49 ROI and not just media level, right? So a system should be able to, like how Rudy was talking about, a multi-channel agile system should be able to capture the performance, or what we call, and performance, please don't think that the performance is media performance. It is outcomes, which is the brand's outcomes that the brand is delivering. And you need to be able to measure it across the entire, granularity. And that is when it is actually complete and gives you the most robust thing, right? Yeah. So, Rudy, if you allow me, I'll take a couple of minutes to explain how the neural networks actually can do this, right? And why the present system, even if they want to do it, has an issue. Like you said, how traditional MMM cannot do this is because of the limitations of the system it had, right? Which is it is siloed in nature. It is, if you look at the kind of challenges of, these are all nerdy statisticians' words, which is multicollinearity, exogeneity, endogeneity, but primarily what the existing systems have two fundamental problems, right, at a practical level. One, it is not able to capture the synergies, right, the halo effects or the interconnected effects that we all understand that it exists in the media world is not captured. And second, the systems are not able to take in as many features as it wants. So for example, if you need to actually build in this level of number of features, a network would require close to 300 plus variables to be taken into consideration for measurement. And that is where the traditional MMM systems lack, because they stop at 60, 70 variables, whereas this kind of a structure requires almost 300 plus variables. And that's where neural networks actually come into picture, right? So if you look at this representation of neural network, which is primarily, at a bottom layer, all the inputs are taken at a very granular level, like we discussed earlier, for all the different uh, marketing drivers or media drivers that are being there across social, search, TV, billboards, consumer promos, shopper marketing, retail media, everything. The important thing to notice here is observe here is that if you look at it, the neural network actually has all the inputs are connected to each other at the middle level, right? So that is where the system is able to understand the presence or absence of one feature, how is it impacting the other feature, as well as what is its direct impact. So any variable that you're doing or including marketing campaign will have a direct impact and also have a interconnected impact, which is synergistic impact. So for example, we all know that TV impacts search. That's an interconnected impact. So the system is trying to understand what is the direct impact and hence what is the synergistic impact. Once the system knows it, like how Rudy is uh, explaining, once they understand what is working and what is not working from a outcome, not media metric point of view, it is also able to tell you what is the most optimal way of planning, which is allocation, as well as optimizing the uh, budget, optimizing the outcome for a given cost. So you can do it at scale. You're doing it for effectiveness, but you're also doing it in a very efficient manner, because now you have a collective view of performance of all channels and not siloed, you know, not optimizing display alone, not optimizing social alone. You're optimizing across the network, which means across all marketing drivers, but you're also optimizing within drivers because you're now optimizing at a very tactic granular level, right? A combination of two, and do it at scale, because you're able to do it at scale in a continuous manner, actually helps the system to do what Rudy is trying to do, which is, plan and optimize for effectiveness, efficiency, and doing at scale in a more agile manner actually helps you to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's, broadly what we wanted to cover. And of course, this other technique that which is actually helping you to do this, what Rudy is talking about, just in time, right? Which is primarily what is called a transfer learning, where recency, right? The system to learn the most recent phenomenon, where it can be 2 weeks or 1 month, the system to learn it and to be able to predict what should be the plan and hence what can be the outcome is a very, very critical new technique that is available to all the planners right now, which was not available, when Rudy and me were actually doing planning. It is similar to exactly how ChatGPT updates its model. Same way, this system utilizes the incremental learning method called transfer learning to learn the most recent phenomenon of business and tell the planner to understand what is going to happen if you do it in a certain way and then optimize it accordingly, right? So that's broadly, to kind of summarize what is important to understand. What's the issue with the present measurement system? What is it? How to make it effective, efficient, and scalable in a most agile manner is what is important for a unified campaign measurement, and how AI is kind of shaping this as we go along. And we can see that as we speak to multiple clients have realized this, right? And they are now starting to look for solutions which can achieve the three trifecta thing which Rudy was talking about. And that's where AI is going to come and really disrupt the whole way of looking at things, right?
Yeah.
Any thoughts, Rudy, before we take in few questions?
Your piece that you had the schematic on, where the decision tree towards the big one, go up one more, or it was the one where you had the audience. Yeah, that right there. I'm going to pick on audiences here. I am not a big fan of audiences in general, and so I am biased. But just to make the point, almost all discussion of audience performance is effectiveness based. It's propensity. What is the likely, how many impressions do I have to give this audience before I'll get back the thing I want, right? Those are the rate of productivity in audiences. That language is almost always, and almost all the predictions are about propensity and future effectiveness. But anybody who's done audiences knows that the higher the propensity of an audience goes, the more expensive it is to reach them, and the fewer there are, right? You know who has high propensity? Rich people. Like, they have high propensity to buy everything. There's just not very many of them, right? Like, if you go into what feature sets predict, make somebody a high propensity user, you're almost always going to find some form of buying power, right? Just knowing that an audience has a propensity of 80% or a score of 90%, right? Knowing that a device or whatever is scored 90% for propensity, that's an interesting piece of information. But knowing that the device has high propensity or the user has high propensity doesn't really matter if you can't afford to reach them, right? So like the Super Bowl is the most effective vehicle, I think, still on earth for advertising. That doesn't mean you can afford it, and it doesn't mean that you need it, right? That fluidity, that agile approach allows you to do a little bit more nuanced projection, right? Yeah, I could theoretically bid on this impression that has a 90%, propensity profile associated with it, but it'll cost 3-4x my average CPM, and even after I win it, I still will not have solved my basic problems of needing scale.
Absolutely.
Scale is almost always the hardest thing to do. A braying donkey can go out and spend, $100,000 easily, right? Go try spending $100 million. Go try spending $1 billion. That is much, much more difficult. And to your point earlier, and the reason I think the neural networks are unlocking value is the amount of variables that you have to consider to work around these sort of simple problems that humans just used to do in spreadsheets or on graph paper and stuff. The number of variables that you have to bring in to manage to effectiveness, efficiency, and scale in real time are beyond, I think, what a human being could do. And I'll wind down here by just saying that the scenario that what your product and products like that unlock, you want to get yourself in a position where you have enough learning about your impressions that you can form a prediction about the value of almost any impression you're offered.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, maybe you're being offered in your upfronts a chance to lock in college football for the year. Predicting the value of that college football package to you 6 months beforehand is also a very complicated thing, but you have time and people tend to like to do those things on their own. Well, what about planning much more dynamic things? Just think in terms of programmatic. What percentage of the impressions that are available do you have an opinion on? Most people have an opinion on a very low single-digit percentage of impressions. They're going to place bids on a low single-digit number of impressions. But if your math can make accurate predictions of value based on these kinds of features, you can bid on everything, right? If you have a reliable
Absolutely.
way, and that's how you get your scale, is you bid more often because you have because you've built information that helps you have an informed opinion more often. That's how you scale.
And also the ability to course correct, the ability to actually make changes, and that's where the whole agile aspect of it and just in
Right.
time aspect of it comes into picture.
Right.
I know that we can talk for hours on this because
Yeah,
both
I
of us are
can.
so
Yeah.
passionate about it.
Yeah.
Tom, any questions?
Sure. Yeah, the first question that we have is, this seems all well and good, right? When we're looking at it from an agile media planning and execution standpoint. Sounds fantastic. Sounds great. What's the reality though? And what I mean by that is what's the reality in terms of being able to get all of the partners in a line so that you're actually getting data in a timely fashion, you're getting clean data in a fashion, you're making sure that you cleanse the data appropriately, ingest it in the month, and then give it 2 weeks after the end of the month. It seems as though, what are some of the steps that are being taken so that you're making sure that you're having a high level of forecasting accuracy on a month-by-month basis?
I can take a crack at that, but it's going to get real nerdy in here. So I would add to your list, Tom. I would, and I don't know what the best word to describe this is, but if the data you're bringing to the process that you're talking about, Tom, is the same data that everybody else has, right? Then it's not going to be good enough. So if I can use, let's just say I go out and buy Axiom data or TransUnion data or whatever, these big third-party feature sets, right? Well, you add the third-party feature sets that anybody can buy to the second-party feature sets, which the publishers will sell to everybody, right? If the only information you have about an impression or a user is the same information that everybody else has about that user, right? You're going to be able to come up with a propensity score or a prediction of effectiveness, right? And your math will be right. If I go out and buy some high net worth cohort from Axiom and I run a propensity score on that cohort and it comes out super high propensity, like, yeah, rich people have high propensity to buy stuff. I totally believe that impression will be delivered to somebody with a high propensity. However, that person's propensity is likely to be expressed not just within your business outcomes, but within everybody who buys that data, right? You don't have any information about that person that's proprietary. You know what everybody else knows, and you're bringing what everybody else knows to the exact same auction, right? Everybody shows up for these high value impression auctions. They all basically know the same thing. They all basically know the same people, right? So what do? You get competitive auctions. You get CPM increases because everybody's bidding on that impression for the same reason at the same time. So it's, even if you do everything right and you bring really robust data sets into the prediction process and you start bidding because the propensity scores are great, if everybody else is bidding at the same time for the same reasons you are, you're not going to clear any inventory unless you bid through the roof, unless you give up all your efficiency and pay more to clear these high value impressions. You have to, it's not just that you have to predict the value using these feature sets that we're talking about. Some of your predictions need to be proprietary. There needs to be a reason to believe that you know something about it that others don't, and that your bids are going to be more accurate reflection of the value. But in the world we live in today, that's a very hard thing to pull off, right? The most valuable impressions to you are most likely going to be the most competitive and have the highest effective CPM. This is why the agility is so important, is you maybe have to make a trade-off. We're going to buy less effective impressions. Like we're going to go from a 90% cohort to a 70%. I'm exaggerating, but as long as your price drops in proportion, that's okay, right? That's why you have to manage the effectiveness and the efficiency together, right? So building that data, getting in a place where you can make accurate predictions, it's not just that you assemble the sort of best practice data. You need to be able to bring something proprietary, and that's going to be the first party data. And you have to make sure that you're not just being promiscuous with your first party data and letting everybody have it, because then it's totally commoditized like everything else is too. You have to bring data that makes good predictions, but it needs to be proprietary, because a prediction that anybody can make and everybody does make isn't a good prediction, even if it's accurate. That was a little long.
So
No,
yeah, but
I get your point. By the way, it's the first time I heard promiscuous in a presentation associated with metrics. So
I got a
I
thesaurus
appreciate
for
that
Christmas.
for throwing a curveball in. First
That's
time
exciting.
I heard that. I want to take a step back on that point for a second, right? So in an MTA world, the data funnel, because most of it's digital, is coming at you much more proficient fashion, right? So it's almost like a fire hose coming at you in terms of
Sure.
data, right? When we talk about other data sources, and I'm talking about some of the traditional data sources where you would actually need it for, say, an agile type of model, their pacing of when the data is made available is not necessarily on a daily basis. It could be a lot longer than that. We'll be kind, right? I don't want to throw anyone under the bus.
No.
So when we think about that, and so first off, you have this, Bharat, what you're saying, you have upwards of 300 different data points that you have in there, right? That's a hell of a lot of data that you're putting in the funnel, right? And you have them pacing at a different basis, digital coming in daily or by the second, depending upon how you're looking at it, and then some going on. How do you harmonize that in a fashion so that you are agile, meaning you are being able to put data out in a month by month basis, as opposed to what I've been working in the business for a while. Traditionally, it'd be two times a year we would get market mix model, and I get 3 months late, and then I'd be like, okay, what do I do with this? I look at it and go, wow, that's really cool, and then I throw it in the back of all my credenza, right? So what are you doing differently, Bharat, that allows you that capability?
yeah, so one is for digital data is all taken care of, right? See, what we also learned is that the ability of the system is to actually optimize and plan on a daily basis, right? But what we all miss is a important communication principle, which is a lag effect of any advertising, right? It is not happening once, right? It is a cumulative effect, which normally takes between 3 weeks to 8 weeks for different kind of campaigns. What we've understood is that the best predictive nature of all the different kinds of tactics actually bear anywhere between 2 weeks to 4 weeks. That's the best predictive accuracy, right? So what we do is that we deliver monthly ROI cycles, to the clients of the last month, as close as within 10 days or 12 days of the campaign, so that they can actually make those changes in the ongoing manner, right? While there are some businesses like retail, QSR, e-com, which can do it much earlier, like once in 2 weeks, because by 2 weeks the lag effects and most of the predictive nature of the impression, how it can work, so it can make changes within 2 weeks too, right? So depending on the business, like I said, established businesses or categories like CPG, 4 weeks is a good cycle in terms of how do we kind of measure it in a unified manner, get a predictive score done, and then bid for it. And for more dynamic categories like e-com, retail, and QSR, you can actually start doing it once in 2 weeks too.
Got it. Another question that popped up was the chart where you're showing the synergies, and you're showing the synergies between the individual media-related component. I think it's media just on the bottom of that one with the, all the tentacles that come down from that, right? So the comment of, okay, they have you can actually put 300 plus different variables in there, and you can look at all the synergies between all of those. What are the advantages of that as compared to what folks have today?
Rudy, you want to take it?
I don't. I could take this one. I'll try to be brief, but we have to get to a place where we think of every bit of information we have is really just a feature of the other information that we have. So, in an MMM model, and I'm grossly oversimplifying here, just let me cook. The MMM inputs, the econometric inputs that go into an MMM model are usually going to be a handful, 2 or 3, right? And there'll be a big argument about housing starts, consumer confidence, oil, right? you have to restrain the amount of that stuff that you put in there for a bunch of different reasons, right? And most people inherit the ones they're going to use anyway because they're the ones they've already used. The advantage today is you do not have to make those trade-offs, right? The unemployment rate for the quarter, right, is a piece of aggregated information that might go into an MMM model once a quarter. But the unemployment rate at the time of the timestamp of the impression that you bought, that's just a feature of that impression, right? I bought impression ABC from publisher XYZ. We served it into the Chicago DMA at 2:30 in the afternoon. And then you've got all those columns where you have all those features that are associated with it. One of those features that be associated with it is just a discrete value from an aggregated MMM input. So, right, at the time we bought this impression, this is what oil cost in that market. This is what consumer confidence was. You can start taking these aggregated inputs and disaggregate them and make them features of an impression, and then let the math tell you what the relationship is between them instead of just starving the model of just the 2 or 3 inputs that you understand. Turning these big aggregate inputs into dynamic time-stamped features of an impression allows these algorithms to go in and find connections with stuff that you would never find. There would never be the granularity. And I mean, 300 is a constraint today. There's no reason why 10 years from now we couldn't be talking about 3,000, 30,000 and more. That's what the math is great at, is don't force it to affirm your presuppositions. Let the math tell you what the pattern is and give it as much useful feature information for that purpose as possible. The future, you could not have done that historically. You were constrained, and in ways that you currently aren't. The number of features you can bring in, I think, changes the game. I hope I came close to answering the question.
Absolutely. So, to just add on to what Rudy is saying, right? It is the ability to take the features, and once, like how Rudy was saying, the system is able to make that connections or understand the interconnected synergies. To just give you a sense, what happens with the existing systems where you don't take those features is that the actual ROI is underreported because its synergies are never measured, right? It is never understood. It goes into baseline. It goes into unexplored territory where actually your marketing is actually working for you, but it's not reported well, right? So there are reports, established studies by MIT, BCG, McKinsey, which actually tells that if you don't measure synergies, you can lose anywhere between 15% to 35% of effectiveness in the overall thing. Because the system is not able to understand those synergies and the connections, and hence makes a big mistake. And that is the reason why you are able to have a very high level of predictive accuracy in causal AI. Whereas in existing systems or in statistically based systems, you're at the max, your forecasting accuracy is 70%, which is as good as a very good, intelligent professional who can make a choice, right? So that's a difference, right? That's what makes the causal AI paradigm more suitable for what is required.
So I'm going to end this discussion with a simple question for the two of you. In 3 years, where would you like to see the business from this type of standpoint, from an agile, dynamic standpoint? Where should it be, and where do you want it to be?
I'll go. I don't know if 3 years is enough time to get there, but channel fluidity and metric fluidity, I think, are the way to go, right? I'm just going to keep using programmatic impressions and bidding as the example, right? For every impression you are offered, the predictable ROI of that impression changes based on what metric you're asking it to be productive on. Every impression has the ability to be predictive on more than one metric, right? To provide value on more than one seed, right? I do think stacking metrics and seeds in this way and making your predictions just well, what would this impression be worth to us if all we wanted to do was accumulate reach? What is it if we wanted to accumulate hard to find reach or incremental reach? What if we want to click? What if we want to site visit? What if we want to purchase? What if we want to sign up, right? All of those are different seeds. The ability to make accurate predictions of what that impression is going to do for you with multiple impressions or multiple metrics at the same time, and then just have this sort of meta level decision making that just says, well, the highest ROI potential for this impression is to buy it on a incremental reach metric, and the bid for that is X, right? But whereas if it's clicks, it's Y. I do think that getting to a place where money can move fluidly across channels and across metrics at the same time is sort of a real step in the direction of the paradigm to come, which I think is a much more automated process. Just it's literally when you're offered an impression, can you predict the value that it's going to generate for you and make an appropriate bid and clear inventory? The more impressions you can predict on, the more inventory you'll clear, the more scale you get. So I think that's the progression, is to be metric fluid, channel fluid, and then be able to make an informed value prediction on every impression you're offered.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way things are moving, and so I'll tell you, so a lot of people, I strongly believe that the future is not out there in the future. It is actually happening in the fringes, right? So if you look at what people like us are doing, is that we're actually telling clients the predictive value of what, outcome, whether it's a purchase or whether it's a incremental reach or consideration, depending on what the KPI is, right? We're already doing it, right? What's going to happen is that it's going to get accelerated in a way which is unified, which is agile, which is granular, but it is almost like a planning agent, which is making the decision in terms of, hey, this is the budget available for the day or for a week, for a month. What kind of impressions will I buy given the objective is set by the client? So it's almost like imagine a planning team set the budget and or the outcomes that are required. Like, hey, this is my, and I'll take the example of what Rudy was telling about Google, right? Where Google has this flexibility of, hey, I'm trying to optimize outcomes. This is my budget and this is where I want. Google itself right now is doing it for its own stack. What systems like us are going to do is the client is going to say, hey, this is my monthly plan, this is my annual goals, this is my monthly goals. Can you now help me plan for it, which is allocation, and also optimize for granular tactic level, make that decision for me and keep continuously monitoring and make it happen, right?
Yeah.
So I see a world where there is a planning agent working from unifying all the marketing drivers, creating a plan for you on outcome based that you want, and now going at a tactic level and making those decisions and do it on a continuous basis. So there's an intelligence layer, which is one level before the buy layer, right? And it is unified layer. It's not siloed layer. Like right now, Google has a siloed layer of only for Google or only for programmatic. It is an intelligence layer which is across all channels and platforms, and it is making that intelligence decision and not a channel level, social level decision, right? Or a search level decision.
Yeah.
And that's the future, and it is coming. And I see it happening because we're talking to agencies who are trying to incorporate this thinking. They're already making those baby steps. They're already trying to work with us, collaborating with us. They're working with us along with our clients to make this happen. But definitely that's the way world is moving, right? Some people calling it as, media planner as a data scientist, but I see it, planning agent as a media planner, right? Which is the other way around, where things are, the intelligence layer is actually helping you to make the decisions in an ongoing manner, right? So that's the world I see.
Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much. This was a fantastic conversation. Rudy, as I know, we could go on for days.
Yeah.
But we do appreciate your participation. You did a fantastic job.
Oh, thanks.
And Rudy, I'm not sure if you have your email address or the website for Prohaska. Hopefully I pronounced that
Just
correctly.
find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think, people would want to reach out to you and, grab some of your time. Bharath,
Yeah,
as always,
happy to.
fantastic. For those that are on the call, thank you so much for your participation, your questions, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. So take care and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.